So welcome everybody to GENOA's October Community Call. My name is Natalie, or Na, it's my name. Good to see you all here, some friendly faces. And today's call is on the topic of dealing with disasters. So everyone, I think, at this point in Asia knows someone or has been affected personally by disasters. So the first thing we're going to do before we get into the context and the content is we've got a song to play you, which is from an artist. It's called From the Ground Up, and we'll show the lyrics as well on the screen so you can see. And this is, you'll see the lyrics in the song are both appropriate to many different types of situations of rebuilding. So ask him to share those lyrics and we'll play the song.
As a wave across the land, we are moving, moving. This ain't no phase, the change these bodies make and the way they are facing forward, shoulder to the storm, telling of moving. It takes one step, it takes your voice, it takes your voice saying, I am not hearing if you are not naming it. I am not stopping if you are not changing it. Here are my hands, let's see what they're making. In the morning, in the rise up, there's a bridge from all that's been in the dawning. The vines are pushing through the pavement. We were born of burning hearts. We are tearing off the reins. From the ground up we will build it. From the clouds above we'll rain it. From the crowd up we will raise it. From the ground up. You hold the spade to turn new soil for the coming grace. You hold the plans. No hands but our hands will lead our children. All that will feed you is a fierce prayer, is a fierce prayer, saying, I am not hearing if you are not naming it. I am not stopping if you are not changing it. Here are my hands, let's see what they're making. In the morning, in the rise up, there's a bridge from all that's been in the dawning. The vines are pushing through the pavement. We were born of burning hearts. We are tearing off the reins. From the ground up we will build it. From the clouds above we'll rain it. From the crowd up we will raise it. From the ground up. From the crowd up, we will raise it from the ground up.
So she's an awesome artist, and she has many good songs with many good words. So we'll put her in the resources for the follow-up of this call. So, and we have some more friends who've joined us. Welcome, friends. So today's call is about dealing with disasters, and the community calls that we're holding in Genoa. We know that you want to connect more deeply with each other. So we're going to make a bit of space for that now and invite you each into a room with another person. I don't know if we've got an odd number. Hopefully we haven't got an odd number. And you'll have 3 minutes to talk each about who you are, where you're calling from, and maybe any disasters that you've experienced or any experiences you've had that are relevant to this topic. And then we're going to come back into the main room. So it's just a little chance to meet one of your friends here and maybe meet somebody new from a different region. So Kin, wave when you're ready. And for me, as I said, my name is Na. I'm in Thailand and I'm part of GENOA's core team. And we just recently had floods. So the worst floods on history in Chiang Mai. So that was kind of intense. So I've got some very relevant experience to share. All right, are we ready to go, Kin? Okay, welcome back, everybody. We'll wait for everyone to join. And then we'll do some introductions as we launch into our main session. First, I know that Kin is doing the tech support, but Kin, can I ask you to introduce yourself and where you're calling from?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Keen. I'm actually sitting behind Chang. You can see me on the other screen as well. So we're from the same community called Project R in Vietnam, and I'm also volunteering for Global Eco-Village Network Oceania and Asia. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Kin. And Tom, can I ask you to introduce yourself? Tom is one of our speakers today.
Yes, hi. I'm Tom Dijters. I'm originally from Holland, but I live in Thailand, where we started a project called Gaia Ashram about 12 years ago. We're regenerating about, at the moment, 16 hectares of land and providing permaculture and eco-village design education to many people, many volunteers and interns, and trying to bring awareness to the climatic disasters, and also trying to come up with practical solutions and trying to live differently together in a community as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. And Shafiq, may I ask you to introduce yourself, where you're calling from?
This is Muhammad Shafiqul Islam. I am from Bangladesh, a disaster-prone countries, and today I am facing a disaster. The cyclone Dana is approaching tonight or next morning. So, Bangladesh, how disaster-prone countries. I have working experience in different national and international organizations in disaster management, agroforestry, social forestry, mangrove plantation, adaptation, resilience, coastal resilience. I have working experience in UNDP Bangladesh, FAO Bangladesh, Winrock International, BRAC International in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And I had experience to work in Port-au-Prince in 2012 after the devastating earthquake in 2010 in Port-au-Prince.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's a wide variety of disasters. So and Sarah, our other speaker, is actually not able to join us today because, or she might join us, but we suspect she won't be able to because she's actually helping farmers recover from a typhoon in the Philippines right now. So we have some video from her, but she apologizes that she's actually having to deal with some disaster management right now. So I'm going to give us we have some general questions, which was the things we asked our speakers to think about. And I know Shafiq has got some slides to go through, but just so you know, the questions are to talk about a little bit about the disasters that they have experienced or some of the disasters they have experienced and the context, like where they were socially, environmentally, and everything else, what the impact of the disaster has been and what their response was or potentially could be. And then also what advice they would give to someone who might be facing a similar situation. And I'll invite Tom and Shafiq to openly, if you have something to comment to each other, then please do feel free. And if anyone else has a question throughout the session, you can type it in the chat and then we'll pick up with them whenever we have a break, and we can ask the speakers just so we don't forget. Or you can remember, my memory is not so good, so I have to write everything down. So feel free to add it to the chat. So yeah, Shafiq, if I can ask you, please, if you have information to share and if you can share your slides, talk a little bit about all of the work that you've and experience that you've done.
Okay. You can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So today's discussion on dealing with disaster in Bangladesh and Bangladesh Environment and Development Society, my organization, BET's initiative in addressing the disaster. So thank you, Na, thank all of you for giving me the opportunity to present the disaster situation of Bangladesh and my organization also. Bangladesh, disaster in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a disaster-prone country, and mostly its geographical location and climate change also the most reasons behind this. And there are three big rivers that formed the Bangladesh: the Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Meghna. And the Himalayan part is situated in north of the Bangladesh, and in the south part there is the Bay of Bengal. So the common disaster in Bangladesh: floods, cyclone, storm surge, salinity intrusion, river bank erosion, heat wave, lighting, drought, fire, tsunami. These are the most common disaster in Bangladesh, but cyclone and flood particularly cause the massive damage in Bangladesh, and frequently we feel the disaster. I already said the geographical location, environmental situation, and climate change is the main cause of disaster in Bangladesh. So I can discuss with in each disaster in Bangladesh, like flood. The most common flood in Bangladesh, about 18% of the country gets flood every year, and it's 68% of the country's land is vulnerable to flood, and around 25 to 30% area is inundated during normal flood. There are few kinds of floods like flash flood, rain-fed flood, river flood, and coastal flood. Flash flood is the mostly the upstream water flow from India, and in 2024, August 24, there was a devastating flood in east-south part of the Bangladesh in August 2024, and it was affected around 10 districts near the Indian periphery. And cyclone, it's also a common disaster in Bangladesh. You can see the geographical location in front of Bay of Bengal. It's the main cause behind the cyclone. And during the monsoon or post-monsoon season, cyclone frequently hit coastal region of Bangladesh. About 40% of total global warming surges are recorded in Bangladesh. In the past century, two of the world's deadliest tropical cyclones occurred in Bangladesh in 1970 and 1991 and killed about 300,000 and 140,000 people respectively. And I experienced the deadly cyclone in 1991.
Shafiq, can I just ask you to just outline what is a cyclone as opposed to a monsoon or other type of storm? Because I've never been inside one, so it might be useful for other people too.
Sorry, no?
What is a cyclone? How is it defined as opposed to a different type of storm?
In 1990,
I mean, in
1991.
general, yeah, in general, like what is a cyclone? For people who don't experience them, can you describe what a cyclone is?
The name of cyclone? A cyclone means we call it Bangla, Ghurnizhor. It's not typhoon, it's not hurricane, we call it cyclone.
Okay.
And today, the cyclone Dana is approaching to Bangladesh and India. Right now, we are in a disaster. Thank you.
Thank you.
Salinity intrusion is now becoming very, very severe in southwest part of Bangladesh. Around 5 or 6 districts are mostly affected by the saline water. The most impact of cyclone intrusion is the reduction of plant growth and different kinds of disease like hypertension, high blood pressure, uh, and heat stroke also. And can we imagine how severe the saline in our coastal area? The WHO recommended salinity range is 600 milligram per liter in water, and it should not be greater than 1,000 milligram per liter. But during the dry season, the salinity level of tube-well water in some parts of Satkhira, I mean my district, where I born, in southwest part, around 6,600 milligram per liter. So you can understand how severe the saline in Bangladesh, and you can understand uh, the teenager girls in the coastal area, they don't use any uh, menstrual pad or sanitary pad during their period uh, due to high saline, and they are also poor and they are not affordable to purchase the sanitary napkin. So they take pill or medicine to stop their menstrual period so that they will not become sick.
So can I ask a question again, Shafiq? Sorry, just to clarify.
Yeah.
Salinity, this is the typhoon or the cyclone brings salt water from the ocean and puts it on the land, increasing the salt on the land. Is that what we're saying?
Salinity, the reason behind the increasing salinity is that there are different issues. In summer period in Bangladesh, the water flow is very low because the Farakka, the Farakka embankment constructed in India, they restricted the water flow to Bangladesh because we are in the lower part, India is upper part. Upstream flow is not available in Bangladesh. That's why the low water in our water bodies like rivers, channels, and even in the Bay of Bengal. So salinity increasing due to low flow of fresh water. This
Okay,
is the
thank you.
most common reasons. And the another part is that the shrimp farming. The shrimp
Yes.
farming in the community level is increasing the salinity in the agricultural field. In our coastal area, a vast area under shrimp farming, and they introduce intrusion the river water to the uh, agricultural field. Now the agricultural crop is not available in a state, but the shrimp farm is growing there.
Okay.
So
Thank
the
you.
whole community is saline zone due to shrimp farming, and the big vegetation is already died. So tree
Okay.
coverage is reducing due to salinity. And the most common problem for the community people, the scarcity of uh, drinking water, because the salinity under the ground is approaching towards the community from the Bay of Bengal. So the drinking water crisis is becoming a severe in south part of Bangladesh. Okay.
Thank
River
you.
bank erosion. This is mostly this problem is in coastal and the big river area. Around 10,000 hectare land is eroded every year in Bangladesh for river bank erosion. Lighting, lighting. Similarly, lighting is becoming a severe disaster in Bangladesh, and the most affected people are the agricultural crop farming people, because they work in the field, and they cannot take shelter during this lighting time. And around 300 people are dying annually in Bangladesh due to lighting. And this happens in mostly in the uh, pre-monsoon time, like April, May, June, this time with the severe year. And I was talking with the heat wave uh, around right now, and after a few years back, uh, the heat wave is becoming another severe disaster in Bangladesh, because 40-45 degrees centigrade temperature we did not feel ever before. But in 2024, we have experienced to absorb this temperature in Bangladesh. So it is becoming a more powerful disaster in Bangladesh, and it is gradually increasing. And now, how prepared in Bangladesh to address the disaster, most common disaster like flood? The government of Bangladesh have already formed different committees, different stakeholder committees like ministry, the district level, sub-district level, and the lower part, the union or in the village level. There are various local committee to address from the government part, and all the community people, different stakeholders are involved in this committee. So, disaster management committee at district and sub-district and union level, they take they call meeting before the flood or any kind of disaster. They inform the community people through cyclone preparedness program CPP, another government entity to address the disaster in Bangladesh. So from the government level, these are the structure to address for during before the disaster, during disaster, and after disaster. And a monitoring cell is there for early warning system. And after disaster, there are some recovery programs like house construction, seed distribution for the farmers, and road construction. Cyclone preparedness, already I have talked about this. They normally inform the community people about the cyclone signal. in Bangladesh, we follow 1 to 10 signals. 10 is the highest signal. The most severe impact will be in Bangladesh. So they disseminate the information from the community so that they can take shelter before the cyclone happen.
Mm.
And Bangladesh government constructed different cyclone shelters to bring the community people or vulnerable people to the cyclone shelters. In recent year, last year, the government changed the design of the cyclone shelter. Before, the government constructed the cyclone shelter for the community people only. But the community people don't want to leave their home during cyclone because they rear some cattle, they rear some domestic birds like poultry, ducks. So they don't want to leave all these valuable assets to their home to go to the cyclone shelter. So the government changed the design and they accommodate the in cyclone shelter the human being and the cattle and the birds at the same time.
Wow.
So this is a big design change in Bangladesh. So that the community people take shelter in the cyclone shelter. And lastly, the construction of kella or earthen mound. In coastal area there are severe islands in remote islands. And the community people they rear the buffalo, cattle. There are many assets there. So the in cyclone shelter, it is not possible to take all the cattle in the cyclone shelter. So the construction of killa, that means the earthen mount, a big high raised platform in the coastal island, the government constructed so that the community people take their cattle to the killa or constructed earthen mount.
Mhm.
So sorry, the kila.
Salinity.
So
Okay,
can I ask
Tom.
about the kila? That's quite interesting. Is so they put the cattle on top or behind it, I guess, if you have the storm
Uh,
coming
they bring the cattle on the top of the killa,
on
top
top.
of the constructed killa. Yes,
Right. So it's for the flooding or
because
more.
yes, there is a risk.
Mhm. Okay, cool.
And salinity, the preparedness for salinity, the government introduced many crop varieties, saline tolerant crop varieties, mound cropping, polder construction, the coastal area in Bangladesh, the government constructed a big embankment around the community so that the flood or the saline water cannot enter into the community level. But the shrimp farming is hampering this construction because shrimp farming needs intrusion the salinity water into their farm. So they illegally construct the loophole into the embankment.
Shafi, can I just
This
ask Tom? Can I just ask Tom to share what type of disasters so you've shared all the types of disasters you've encountered, right? And the context. Can I just ask Tom to share what types of disasters you've encountered and the context of where you've encountered them, Tom? Because that's the first, we'll answer the first question, then we can move on to kind of how you responded. That would be great.
So for me, so we are in the northeast of Thailand, near the Lao border, near the Mekong River. Yeah, so listening to Shafiq talking about Bangladesh, I think their situation is way more extreme than where we are. So for us, we have like kind of yearly flooding of the land a bit, but it hasn't been as extreme that like we need to move people and things like that. But it feels like it could go there. So we're in a constant kind of in that stage in the monsoon season we're constantly, like today or this year, I moved my stuff up and just getting prepared for the case it gets worse, kind of thing. And then we had the Mekong River flood in Nong Khai. So some communities there were underwater, and I guess in Chiang Mai as well. And so we definitely, like for us, we follow definitely a bit more intensely the news in that time, and to kind of be prepared and to predict a little bit where it's going to be next, you know. And it's kind of hard to know for sure in our region. Like we're next to a tributary that goes into the Mekong River that tends to flood in the wet season. So we're quite close to the river. Our land is quite low. So for us, for the farmers around us that farming along the river, they experience generally loss of crop because of the flooding. It's like too much water. So for them, that's quite a great loss. And it's a bit hit and miss. So they grow the rice, and sometimes they get lucky, but more often not, because it's underwater for too long and they lose the crop, and then they lose their income, kind of thing. There is schemes from the government that kind of subsidize the loss, and so people can get money for that. So that's quite good. Yeah, and I think also with the disaster, generally the natural disaster, I think it's also a lot of it is a bit, yeah, stuff is happening, but also the communication from the government is sometimes a bit lacking. And I also feel like for us, it's also about the policy choices and decisions being made. Like the river is also like in our place, it's also like Shavik is saying, they're experiencing drought because India is holding the water back upstream. We have the same thing here happening, and I guess that affects Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand, because China has a lot of dams upstream the Mekong River. So in the dry season, the Mekong River is super low. And that means our river is low because our river drains into the Mekong. So that means like that we don't have at the end of the dry season, our ponds are very low, and we almost have not enough water to irrigate our crops and to have a shower and things like. So we're on a very small level, on a small scale, but I think that yeah, we do experience all these things. So I do have quite like experienced ourselves, like how to deal a bit with having too much water or not having enough water, and we also have some fire risks as well in the dry season, and the same, the heat stress is also sometimes the heat gets really bad. So those are kind of the things we're facing. But it's not, I think, not as bad as in some places yet. So, but I do feel it's going to get worse. So I'm thinking, okay, what can we do? And particularly for also planting crops. So this year I had to postpone some of my planting because I could see the water rise. So then it's affecting my decisions on what to plant and where and when. I was almost ready to plant a field, but then I decided to plant a higher field because I saw the water was going up and up, and I felt it could flood. So that affects my decision making, and that then affects the crops I grow. And that's for me, and I think that's for many farmers, it's like that, right? So that's what we did though, is we tried to mitigate it. So a lot of the land we've raised, so that was quite a big investment. So we raised the land in places where it gets very flooded, because we cannot move. We are where we are, so we need to work with we are. So we raised a lot of our land, so to be able to grow crops and also to have people living there. So that's one way we're trying to deal with it. Also, our friend's house got flooded this year. He's on an island a little bit. So, but not too bad. So, but we designed his house to be on stilts. So that means it's kind of okay, because he can go up and be dry. And so he just had to kayak to our community center because he couldn't walk anymore. There was water everywhere. So yeah, so then having boats ready and things like that can help with a little bit like that. But yeah, so for us, it's maybe not the same level as Shavik is experiencing in Bangladesh or some other people, but yeah, I think we're all affected in lesser or more extent to the climate changes, and it's just going to get worse. And I think I'm pretty aware of it and trying to mitigate. So we do a lot of water harvesting. and then raising land to be able to grow crops, and also thinking about like the next housing to make sure that we can cool it. So having thick walls and planting trees around to keep the houses cool. So because we don't have AC and things, so to be able to live comfortably even in the dry season. So things like that.
So Tom, you're kind of covering some design remedies. You're thinking about the next time you do something, or the design of the land to mitigate some of the climate aspects you're seeing. And Shafiq, you mentioned some of the things the government is doing. Can you take us through some of the things your community is doing, or some of the work that you have done, and whether it's kind of in response to these events, or whether it's kind of in to prepare, like Tom is speaking to design, to prepare, to be better prepared to have less impact against some of those events. So what is the work that you, in the communities you work in, what have you been doing?
Can I share my slides again?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Na. Thank you, Tom. The salinity, I was discussing about the salinity preparedness in Bangladesh. So desalination plant, because I was talking about the drinking water crisis in the coastal area due to high salinity. So you can see the picture. A lot of people, they are waiting to take drinking water from a desalination plant. In coastal area, there are many organizations. They have established the desalination water, but it is not sufficient. And all the community people are not affordable to purchase the drinking water from the desalination plant. That is the big problem for the poor community, the marginalized community. The water is there, but they need to purchase from them. Next, the riverbank erosion. The riverbank erosion, the government has initiated many afforestation, reforestation projects in the coastal area, in the roadside area. So they wanted to increase the vegetation and reconstruct the embankment roads. They filled the embankment with geo bag, one kind of a strong bag, filling with sand. They fall on the near the embankment so that the erosion can be reduced. Then the lighting. The government initiated a palm tree plantation, but it was not successful at all because the palm tree in the around the coastal area is not very easy to implement it, and palm tree is also decreasing in the countries also. The palm tree, actually palm tree reduces the lighting because they absorb the charges produced in the cloud. That's why palm tree can reduce the lighting effect. And heat wave, the heat wave, there is still now there is no any adaptation preparation in Bangladesh, and it is an emerging disaster in Bangladesh. Now, I am talking about what is doing my organization in the community level to reduce the disaster impacts. Bangladesh Environment and Development Society, they established a cyclone shelter in 2015 in in the coastal area, and during cyclone, the cyclone prone areas, the vulnerable people can take shelter, and from beds we provide food, light, etc. And beds organize different educational events to educate the community people to take shelter or to aware about the cyclone, about the impact or consequences of the cyclone, flood, lighting, heat wave, etc. And we have introduced some adaptive livelihood technique so that the community people can practice and get economic benefit from them. And formation of villagers disaster management committee, we have 113 ready disaster community group. So from our side, we trained up the community people so that they can play a role during the cyclone or flood or any kind of disaster. The Sundarban Eco Village project, the uh, BEDS has BEDS is the Equator Initiative Prize of 2024, and our Chief Executive Maksudur Rahman, he is in Colombia for attending COP16 conference. That's why I am here. Otherwise, he would be here. The Sundarban Eco Village project, the theme is that preserving nature and achieving sustainable development. The motto is that the community and the nature should be harmonized in their activities. And BEDS introduce three kinds of key component to address the eco-village project. First, greenhousing. Greenhousing means mangrove restoration, solar energy use, safe drinking water supply, beekeeping, integrated farming, seed bank, blah, blah, blah. So you can see our very practical some photographs here. Green education, we conduct the education program with the elementary school, high school, and the community people so that they know about the environment and the environmental protection. And you can see a photograph in the last left corner. We are constructing a mangrove research center in the coastal area, and this will be a mangrove center or mangrove knowledge hub for the coastal area. And German government BMZ is funding for constructing this knowledge hub. Green business, we introduce many initiative for the community people, very marginalized people, so that they can benefit economically. We introduce the mangrove product like mangrove pickle, mangrove tea, mangrove juice. There are several products they are producing following the cooperative model, and we are facilitating them. They are conducting the responsible tourism. BEDS introduced the drinking water preservation technique, and there are several drinking water plants established in the coastal area. And we introduced the water ATM system for the community people. To some community people, they are doing business for from the water drinking system. And we are planning to produce some climate lead action plan. As I discussed before, we have 113 community disaster Sundarban disaster ready community people group, and we have already introduced a project to prepare the community action plan against the climate change. You can see some products, the mangrove mats, mangrove honey candy, and the pickle. These are the initiatives of Sundarban Eco Village projects. And we introduced the solar energy. We distributed the solar light with solar panel to the community students, and we trained up the youth group so that they can lead the community people against the disaster. So this is all about my presentation about the disaster in Bangladesh and my organization, what we are doing to reduce the climate action and to address the climate disaster in Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Shafiq. That was so much information. And Kin put in the chat that we will be letting you have Shafiq's slides so you can refer back to them. Tom, can I ask you, you covered some of the responses that you're doing in Gaia Ashram. Can I ask you what other responses you see in Thailand or other communities, like other things that you've noticed in response or in preparedness for the disasters or the potentiality that could come?
Yeah, I think government-wise, I mean, locally, I noticed that there is quite a good local volunteer system, and people can get activated quite fast. Or one thing I noticed in Nong Khai, for example, like every day on the highway, there's like emergency crews going to the affected areas from Udon Thani to Nong Khai. And that's like every day. So they're going up and down to support basically the emergency workers there to help. Then also I noticed like all of a sudden there's pictures of Greenpeace going somewhere to help. I mean, yeah, that's a bit more PR, I think, kind of help for getting funding and things like that. That's also there. But yeah, but there's also, I think the community is quite here, I feel is quite supportive, and people have also they donate a lot, and they give a lot of support also, yeah, to like in terms of food or drink or anything that's needed. So I think in Thailand there's quite a good community awareness and support in the face of disaster, and a willingness to help each other. I'm not sure now, because you were in Chiang Mai, I think you probably experienced a bit more of what was happening there, of the community support and how that happened. I don't know, like maybe you could share too.
Yeah, sure. And I think as well, Shafiq, you mentioned you have community representatives, right? So in Thailand, we have a system where we have the government, but they're very far away from us, both, well, in many ways. So we have a system of each village has a head of the village, and they have a female head of the village, and they have a healthcare head of the village. And it was these people that they were the way that the information was traveling around. For the non-Thai readers, the way the information travels around is by Facebook. Of course, the source of all truth on the internet. So we had several pages, and also Google Maps as well. After the first day of the flood, there was a very, very intense, detailed, accurate, like minute by minute updated Google Maps. So in terms of spreading information around, it was super interesting to watch. And it seems to be like the community leads were given the information into the services were responding out, and then everybody, like you said, Tom, there's a very strong community net. As soon as someone's in trouble, people really just come together and try to support as best they can. In terms of the cleanup as well, there's a lot of people that have there's a lot of different, the only bad thing about this is there's a lot of different places where you can see information and go to help. So there's diversification, and it's very spread out. There doesn't seem to be one person saying, this is what we should do, this is what we can do. And I think the funniest thing, or the saddest thing, maybe both, is that the day before the floods hit, the mayor of Chiang Mai said, no, we will not be flooded. So we know not to listen to the government, unfortunately. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question about,
sure.
I have a question to Tom. Because in Bangladesh, the community people, I know the literacy rate about in Bangladesh, they are not educated. So to educate them about the disaster preparedness is not too easy. It is very difficult to make them understand the consequences of different disasters. But I would like to know about the Thailand from Tom. What about the literacy in Thailand community?
I don't know. So I'm also, because I'm not Thai, so I miss a lot of things. But I think people here are more they kind of, when it's happening, it's kind of happening, and they also don't get too worried about it beforehand. Like here locally, if it starts flooding, it's like for most people, this is a great fishing opportunity. So all the local fishermen come out and they start fishing on the street, and something like that. So they don't get too worried, it seems, until maybe it's really happening and becoming. But that's my feeling, especially I think in the Northeast where we are. People have a very laid back in general, like kind of mode, and they kind of more respond maybe too late then, right? So there's a good thing about the mentality. They don't get too stressed about things, and I think that's good. Like in the West, we get very stressed about things beforehand, and flooding becomes super big issue, and anyways. But so I feel like that's kind of a good attitude. People are more accepting and allowing for the change to happen. Whereas in the West, yeah, we really like get really upset, and then so we have to blame someone and things like that. So I think the approach, but then that also being said, yeah, like the government sometimes doesn't give the information in time, or is kind of like now also say, oh, like it feels like also the water was probably going to go to Bangkok, but then they redirect it upstream. So that means to save Bangkok, the rural areas and people upstream in the less developed places are being sacrificed for the sake of Bangkok. So that kind of policy decision making is also happening, and is then also quite severely affecting other communities, because they hold the water up as long as possible to save the more economic areas. So I think this whole disaster also, some part is also like decision making is being made that is affecting people then, because the river is also being managed, for example. Yeah, so this is something that always concerns me. But in Thailand, the river management is done by the irrigation department. So their main incentive is to keep as much water up as possible. So mainly trying to keep the dams, or the gates, trying to keep them closed to keep the water upstream for irrigation, so people can grow the rice in the dry season. So there's this yeah, so their main concern is maybe not letting the water go when it's needed, but also so there's yeah, there's also the kind of decision making that is then affecting a lot of people, and their lands get flooded in the wet season, and it makes it quite challenging for them to do work, or their houses get flooded and things like that. Yeah.
We have one other thing I'd like to throw into the mix, which is called lack of losing face. So we have a huge issue. I don't know, other countries in Asia probably have this too, where someone more junior, especially in a military or government position, is not able to tell their senior any information or instruction. So there could be someone who really knows what needs to happen, but they cannot actually culturally say it to the person above or to the person where it needs to go. So we see this happen kind of quite often, unfortunately. There's a question in the chat. There's one for Tom. On a community level, Tom, how are you preparing your community and the local community for disasters to come?
Yeah, so I mean, our community, so we're mainly like also quite a bubble, a little bit international. We are now also more linked to the outside community, but we're kind of an international permaculture community. For us, the challenge is a bit like, for example, is making decisions, because we have guests coming in, right? And then the water is going up. And so we have to kind of weigh those kind of decisions. Okay, when do we say, like we were supposed to have a Chinese group come of 20 people for doing a course for a few days. But then we made the decision not to have them here, because the concern was that it might flood and it would create a lot of discomfort and things like that. So we changed the venue to Bangkok. But so those kind of yeah, decisions. So that makes it for us personally as a project a bit more complicated, because it's not only about ourselves, but also we have guests and people joining courses and things. So we have to kind of be aware of them. I think as for the local community, yeah, I think people generally they cope quite well with adversity, and they tend to kind of get over it quite well. Yeah, a lot of people face kind of problems and also related to but yeah, so like I said before, there are subsidies, so they do get some support from the government. And so I think in that sense, the Thai government is quite socially, although it's a military government, it's quite socially, yeah, socially engaged, and will provide people with support. Same for the healthcare. The healthcare system is quite good relatively. So which is quite interesting contradiction in a way. But yeah, so that works quite well.
Thank you, Tom. And we have some questions coming in the chat, but maybe now is a good time. We have a short video from Sarah, our third speaker, she sent a video in case she couldn't join. So we're gonna play that now. And Sarah founded an organization called Green Relief, which was specifically for disaster response in the Philippines, which is one place where there's so many disasters. So we're gonna hear a little bit from Sarah about Green Relief as an organization and the work they've been doing.
But before sharing the video, I just want to share this slide that Sarah have prepared to show different ways that they have worked on disaster response, also recovery and mitigation. The video that we will see will cover mostly the recovery part and mitigation part, but there's also an app, a map that they are building that fits with a lot of the ideas that flow into the chat just now as well. Now I'm gonna show the video.
Ako si Maribel Remion ng Barangay Batok. Naging isa ako sa tinuruan ng permaculture kung paano ko ito gawin.
Pagkatapos ng typhoon, marami talagang nangungulila sa mga pananim nila kasi wala talagang naiiwan. Maraming pananim na naapektuhan, may naanod na mga kalabaw sa lakas ng tubig, may eroded na parte ng mga pananim, yung palay, mais, at iba pa.
So naisip namin, walang mangyayari sa amin pag nawala yung priority source of income namin para i-support sa family. So blessed kami dahil nung panahon ng Yolanda, after that, marami nagturo sa amin ng paano kami magkakaroon ng food security after disaster. At lalo na ngayon na ito na naman tayo sa COVID-19, while na-stuck tayo sa kanya-kanyang lugar, di tayo makalabas para mamili, para maghanap buhay. Yung nagagawa naming libangan ng pamilya ko, ito nga, naggagawa kami ng garden para kahit papano sa madaling mapagkukunan ng pagkain or kahit sa panggulay naman lang or sabihin natin walang bigas, meron tayong alternatives na root crops na ipapari sa gulay, so at least pagkain na yan ng pamilya.
Nakita nila kung gaano kami naghihirap doon sa Metubasag, wala kaming makuhang lupa, tas napunta kami dito, nagka-garden kami kahit papano. At least wala namang ganong malaking pera na gagastusin mo.
Sakaling balik yung nakuha. Kasi mulan ng medyo bukas, nawawala yung mga taksoy. Wala nang ibang nakatulog sa soil.
Kailangan talaga may balik ang effect ng lupa. Kasi sa lupa natin ngayon, parang kumbaga sa tao may karamdaman na. Kasi sa paggamit ng mga chemical fertilizers, kundi ang dinasisira ang lupa natin ngayon. Paano natin may babalik yun? Sa pamamaraan ng permaculture, ang gamitin natin mga fertilizers, yung may babalik na tulad ng BRA.
Ito yung ano namin, for vermicast namin, pwede po tayo maglagay dito ng nabubulok, yung nabubulok na bawal po yung plastic dito, cellophane, tapos pag naano na siya, nabulok na siya, mas maganda po itong itimplanan kasi mas marami yung good bacteria. Tapos pag nabulok na siya, ito na yung nilalagay, tinitimplanan sa pananim namin. Ito, every 1 week, hinahalukat namin. Tapos pag nakita na namin na nag-dry, hinalagyan na namin ng tubig, binibisisa namin yun. Every 1 week din yun.
Pagdating naman sa soil, hindi naman kami ganong nangangamba na kakailanganin namin siya ng mga pampataba. Natitest na namin o nakikita ko na ang soil namin dito is mataba talaga siya. Kailangan lang natin siyang i-cultivate para siya matamnan. Kailangan lang ng tamang pag-aalaga sa lupa at saka sa paglilinis. So kahit naman papaano, hindi naman mahirap yung paglilinis. Meron ka lang bulo, itak, or kaya yung rake para malinisan siya dyan. So papunta na yan doon.
Kaya po tayo gumawa ng nursery, nataniman po ng seedling. Inaantay po natin na pumabot po siya sa tamang oras po na pwede siya itanim bago natin ilipat sa kanila natin. Pwede rin po kami gumawa ng mga itong mga picture namin. Pwede po namin ibenta yung mga seedling namin sa ibang mga tao po. Mas maganda yung may nursery ka kasi pag may kung pwede kang itanim, dito ka na lang magpunta.
Tubuan ko ng mga tatanim ko. Nursery na maliit lang, market, maliit lang.
Sa pamamaraan ng permaculture, kailangan talagang mag-good. Kasi ang advantage ng mosin, hindi matutuloy ka agad ang lupa.
Pataba ng mga gulay din sa pag-alina, na para hindi tutubo itong mga damo na to.
Ito sa mga igame, bukid namin para makapiparan sa garden namin, ang mamakalat.
Ano po siya, water system po galing doon sa may pump po. Hindi ka na po mahirapan mag-output ng tubig. Diretso na po ito sa garden.
Yung mula doon, para kako hindi ako mahirapan lalo na sa tubig, kapag didilig sa kanya, doon sa lababo namin doon, naggawa ako ng soil papunta rito, dadaanan ng tubig galing sa yung grey water niya papunta rito, para doon yung mga tabi-tabi nito, malagyan siya ng tanim para parang laging malamig yung lupa.
Nakita ninyo ma'am, nakaslide po yung cake. Bali, ang ginamit po namin dito, parang paano po siya, gumawa po kami ng airplane po. Para po ganito po yung design namin, para po hindi po diretso yung tubig. Dito lang sa, hindi po siya natutuloy kaagad.
Meron ako ditong ampalaya. So, hindi ako hirap sa pagdidilig para sa kanila dahil dito, ito, dumadaan yung tubig galing dun sa gripo, pababa doon, meron ako ditong squash. Look, ang squash ko mataba. Oh, yan. Yung tabing kalsada namin, para magkaroon siya ng pakinabang din, para hindi lang pang isang pamilya, kahit kapitbahay, pwedeng makinabang. O, sa tabi ng kalsada namin in the way, meron kaming mga tanim na gabi leaves, okay, ladyfinger. Look, sa tabi ng kalsada namin yan dito. Yan, marami kaming gabi. So, ang gabi, malaking benefits din yan dahil sa gabi, sa dahon, sa laman, pagkain na rin yan ng pamilya. So, pang madalian, meron tayong string beans. Sa maliit na lugar, ginawa ko siyang maraming klaseng gulay para sa pinakamadaling harvesting. So, hindi natin kailangan mag-antay ng ayuda kung saan manggaling na gobyerno or sa NGO. Dahil yung maliit nating lupa o maliit na garden, pwede na natin siyang tamnan. Kailangan lang ng plano kung paano mo siya gagawin. Sa dahan-dahang trabaho, marami rin tayo maitatanim dyan.
Kung magtutulungan lang yung mga tao sa barangay dito sa Pantaon na kahit wala ng komunidad na tutulong sa amin, basta na ang sa akin lang is yung cooperative at saka community. Yun lang yung makakatulong sa amin. At saka din, salamat din sa Green Relief dahil sa kanila natutunan ko to.
So we'll send a virtual thank you to Sarah. That's just a little bit about the work that Sarah does. Green Relief is her organization. And as you see there, she is a permaculture designer. So that's one of the main ways that Green Relief responds, is to actually empower people to create systems of their own, small scale systems in their houses. So they are better prepared if the larger systems, if the shops go down, if the government goes down, then they have their own way of sustaining themselves. So we've got 13 minutes left. I just want to open up to any of our participants. If you have a question for any of our speakers or you want to share something, please do feel free. You can raise your physical hand or your Zoom hand, or you can just show your face and ask a question. So has anyone got anything they'd like to share or ask? Yes, Kim.
I just want to add two more things in to do justice for Green Relief's work. There's also a matchmaking platform that they are doing. So they match all the needs and the offers from people from the community before and after a disaster like a typhoon. So they can match like who needs a boat, who need life vest, or who needs seats, and who can offer what. So they have like a platform, and I think this initiative is very beautiful and can be replicated at the community level. So everywhere we are, we can do this matchmaking offers and needs. You can actually see the photos of it in the slide that I put in the chat, the Canva slide from Sarah. And for helping with some emotional and mental health after disaster. I know that Sarah has been also doing some rituals and artwork to help communities go through the grief of being through disaster. And I think mourning and grieving, it's a process that sometimes is not really valued enough. It helped us to recover. Actually, it's part of the process of recovering after disaster. So Sarah is not here to really touch on this nicely, give it the justice, but I just want to mention that, and maybe we can ask her for some resources to share with you after.
Thank you, Ken. And I think also there was a question in the chat about mental health, and I think that's a really important thing to think about. And when we're in a crisis or in a disaster, it's very much about the physical response, right? The emergency response. But as Kim was saying there, after the immediate physical response kind of dies down, there is a big emotional and psychological response, often in a community or in an individual. So that is, a lot of Sarah's work. Also the work that reconnects. She worked the Reconnects trainer as well. Yeah, so the work that reconnects is work from Joanna Macy, which is very much about works in this. So we can link that as well in the resources that we follow up. Excuse me. So, okay, I'm going to open up to Shafiq and Tom. Is there anything else you want to add, share, or ask each other as well?
Okay. Thank you, Na. I would like to share our organizational some policies like to improve, to develop any community. It is very important to use the local resources and knowledge. The imported knowledge or imported technology is not sustainable for the future. That's why we introduce the mangrove-based production through the cooperative society, and we introduce for forest conservation the very local knowledge, the spiritual knowledge also, because the community people, they have a good faith on their religion to conserve the forest and ecosystem. So we believe that to improve the community, to restore the ecosystem, to improve the biodiversity, to conserve any forest land, it is very important to introduce the local practice, because the community people once receive the imported or modern technology, but they cannot sustain on it very long time. That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I think one good tool to kind of build our resilience, I guess, is permaculture, as also was shown in Sarah's video. I think it's an empowering tool for coming up with solutions for our own needs and that are locally appropriate. So I think most of you may be aware of permaculture, but I would recommend doing a permaculture design course. And yeah, one question I also have is like, okay, if disaster does hit, and like you said, there's the emotional kind of also of that, and the physical as well. It can be physically completely, like, I guess, very demanding, coping with disaster and cleaning up after disaster, and then emotionally as well. It's quite an intense thing. So then also, like, how do we create spaces where people can go or something after, where they are more safe and where they can kind of recover, like mentally, emotionally and physically. So I think very important to have maybe straight after some kind of disaster to have some place where people could feel safe and feel can have time to recover. I don't know how to do that, but I think that's important. I think because it's very stressful, I guess, being in situations like that. And so that's something I've been considering also, and also having the resilience to be able to pack up and leave, like for us, that's for me also a challenging one, because we have so much stuff now, we're so tied to the land. To just kind of walk away and give up is kind of, for me mentally, it's quite a difficult one. But I would recommend, especially to younger people, to have that kind of freedom still, to be able to just kind of being able to pack up and go somewhere else if needed, because I think many places we are going to be facing this kind of disasters, and it could be anywhere. So it's you might, like places that before we thought were safe are maybe not anymore. So I think for young people, because for older people it's more difficult because we're already kind of tied into a place, but to have the ability to just pack up and being able to leave and go somewhere and let it go for a bit, or until it's ready to go back or something like that. I don't know. So there's some thinking I'm having there, but I don't have the clarity also yet on how that could work, but I think it's an interesting discussion point and thinking about this.
And I think the thing about being a good designer is not to have the answers, right? But to ask the questions. That's the thing. So we are coming up to the end, and I just want to pick up with one question that Alice has posted in the chat. It says, German TV just ran a program on artificial intelligence in farming. We have so many well-educated individuals active in the Global Eco-Village Network. Could we collaborate together to develop an app that promotes regenerative farming and other means of addressing climate change? It's a big question, Alice. I'm going to invite Kin to respond, because there are some projects that are happening within GEN that are really drawing on the experience and wisdom of different eco-villages and communities. And I don't know if an app is in the works. I think that might be a little bit advanced for where we are right now, but the gathering of the wisdom for sure is happening. So Kin, can you share a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. I also noticed there's a question from London in the chat for Shafiq. So maybe Shafiq, you can address that in the chat box, or we can go to that later. So in GEN, there's a project called Community Eco-Village Resilience Project, looking into how eco-village can really be a sanctuary for life, both for human and non-human, in a scenario of climate change of a 2.5 degree higher world. And in that project, they developed a lot of different tools to access and to develop, to grow communities' resilience. And all of that, it's available on the website. It's ecovillage.org/resilience, and that includes a set of cards for community resilience assessment. And in these cards, they mention also how important and what are the things that it's needed for communities to be prepared for disaster. And also all the other areas as well. But it's interesting that the disaster management part is also show up in this work. And they also have a free course for any communities to join. And at the moment, they are building the next phase of the project, which is called now the Keystone Communities. And in this phase of the project, we will also invite communities around Asia and around the world to participate. And Sundarbans with BEDS actually joined the first phase of the project, which happened in the last 2 years. And I think although we are not building an app, but there's also a lot of resources that have been pulling together. And in response to the question of how community can be stronger. And all of these tools also covers permaculture, it covers regenerative agriculture as well. And finally, I also want to drop in the chat later a link to the Eco-Village Design course at Gaya Ashram next year. That's also where if you're working on a community project, it's a great place to come and see how to design it for resilience. Yeah, and in follow-up with this call, I will also drop in a lot of different links about BEDS work, about Sarah's work, and Gaya Ashram's Tom's work as well.
Thank you, Ken. So we're just about at time now. 2 minutes. I'm going to ask everyone to, if you're still here, if you want to pop your faces on the video, then we can say goodbye and close out. And thank you so much for Shafiq and for Tom for joining us and sharing. It's been really educational, and I really appreciate hearing your experiences and learning firsthand how we can maybe prepare better in our local environments. Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you for joining.